So for everyone that hasn't been following me, I've been reading a lot of books lately. And the last two books that I read, I ended up making videos for every 20 pages just to share my thoughts and opinion and what inspired me from it. And so the next book that I started reading today is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And it's phenomenal already. I only read 20 pages so far and I fell in love. I started writing notes, page one, and in my head I was like, I'm gonna be writing a lot of notes from this book. And so what I usually do in my videos is I give quotes from the actual book that I wrote down and then just share like what drew me to those quotes. Because usually when I write it down, it's really impactful to me. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start with my notes here. And so the first line is, to create is to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. It could be a conversation, the solution to a problem, a note to a friend, the rearrangement of furniture in a room, a new route to avoid a traffic jam. Through the ordinary state of being, we're already creators in the most profound way, creating our experience of reality and composing the world we perceive. So I think it's so interesting. So he talks about, obviously, you don't have to be a quote unquote artist just if you're only doing just traditional art. Like there's art in so many ways and shapes and forms. Like he said, like rearranging furniture, that's a creative that's a creative approach, because you're kind of thinking like, how should it be laid out? How do I want it to be organized and whatnot? And avoiding traffic, you're thinking creatively in your head, which way should I pivot to get off this freeway exit quicker? So there's so many creative ways that we kind of don't really think about that are creative, but are very creative. It's just kind of like what we're grown to think is that traditional art is the only creative lane. And so bouncing off that, he says, regardless or not we're formally making art, we are living as artists. We perceive, filter, and collect data, then curate an experience for ourselves and others based on this information set. So it goes to show what I just discussed, like how we perceive and collect the data, and then we creatively act based on the data that we're getting. And so he mentioned that examples of art that humans have created that we're kind of destined to do is the Golden Gate Bridge, the White Album, the Space Shuttle, iPad, and the Philly cheesesteak. So all of these examples are very creative and in different lanes. Like obviously a cheesesteak has nothing to do with the Golden Gate Bridge, but they were equally creative. They are things that were there before I was born and will continue to be there that people will enjoy and admire. People are constantly taking pictures with the Golden Gate Bridge. And so we're all creatives that create to help the world or just kind of express ourselves and give ideas out there. So the next line, he says, as children, we experience much less interference between receiving ideas and internalizing them. We accept new information with delight instead of making comparisons to what we already believe. We live in the moment rather than worrying about future consequences. We are spontaneous more than analytical. We are curious, not jaded. Artists who are able to continually create great works throughout their lives often manage to preserve their childlike qualities. Practicing a way of being that allows you to see the world through uncorrupted, innocent eyes can free you to act in concert with the universe's timetable. I think that's so powerful, and I think a lot of artists do obviously keep their childlike self. I remember watching this interview with Steven Spielberg, and he kind of said, I'm doing everything I do for my 9 to 13-year-old self. And that's the way to go when you're creating art. You have to look at things in a very like broad perspective where you're just kind of soaking in the information. God, I can't speak. Rather than kind of like judging it or analyzing it in the way that we kind of naturally do. So he's basically saying if you can just kind of like perceive and like take in all the information and all the positive and negative energy you get and just kind of like consume it and don't let your thoughts kind of take over it, then you're going to naturally be more of a creative artist. So I love that. And he has this thing that he has this line that says, there's a time for certain ideas to arrive and they find a way to express themselves through us. We begin with everything. We see, we do, we think, we feel, we imagine, we forget, we let unspoken thoughts go away, we let them come in. And so everything that we start, we begin with everything. So he's kind of saying that ideas and things kind of like naturally come. You shouldn't have to force it. And they can come in so many different ways, whether it's like a dream or just like something you see when you're driving, maybe something that you watch like creates like a creative spark in you. And so bouncing off that, he says, Art is a circulation of energetic ideas. What makes them appear new is that they're combining differently each time they come back. No two clouds are the same. It could be something familiar coming back to us in a familiar form, or something unknown that we didn't realize we were looking for. That one is really interesting to me because I feel like when I think of like artists, like producers, composers, or like filmmakers, writers, I feel like they'll use the same idea in certain ways, but they kind of tweak it to look unfamiliar. So a producer, for example, might use a beat that they used 5 years ago, but they'll use it in a different melody that makes it sound different. And so you can get ideas that have been to you before, and then you kind of tweak it based off new ideas that you got and kind of mix it into a ball, into something that's a little different. And I feel like, and then he also says something unknown, and I feel like that's when artists kind of, like, they change, they grow, they mature, they look at things differently, and so they kind of stumble upon something unfamiliar that they weren't used to, that they use as inspiration to create new work. And the last one is, the universe is only as large as our perception of it. When we cultivate our awareness, we are expanding the universe. This expands the scope, not just the material at our disposal to create from, but of the life we get to live. So he goes to say about, like, if you're observing a flower, the way you look at it and take in the information can be analytical or natural, kind of like the childlike approach, he said. So if you're looking at a flower and kind of thinking overly about the details and whatnot, you might be analyzing rather than letting things kind of naturally come to you. And he said, based on how you look at it too, it can be different. You might be super zoomed in, which will make you look at things differently at the flower, or you could be super far away, which will make you look at the whole picture in a different way. So how you perceive it, or how you look at it, is how you perceive the image and just the life we live.